Welcome, everybody. I'm Hugh Massie, the chairman of DNA Behavior and also the Behavioral Economics Institute. And DNA Behavior is proud to be the sponsor of the Behavioral Economics Institute and to bring you this podcast today. And I'm delighted to have with me Joelle Franks. And the idea of this podcast is to flush out more conversations, stories, insights about how economics and psychology intersect, and to elevate this topic to have more influence in how companies are led and how people live their lives in every respect. So, Joelle, uh, welcome. And just as an introduction for Joelle is the CEO and founder of Fin Wisdom. We've interacted for the last 15 years on a whole range of behavioral economics topics, but particularly and initiatives, particularly though in how marketing content is structured and presented, published with behavioral economics in mind to help people make better decisions more comfortably, more quickly. And he is also an author and a podcaster himself and a wonderful facilitator. So welcome, Joelle.
Thanks for having me, Hugh. And if I may say, I'm glad we're talking about this now. The time couldn't be better. I think you did an excellent job of my background. I'll just add that a lot of my time is also being a behavioral marketing strategist and consultant. And I teach specifically this topic at NYU, as well as similar topics at CUNY.
Yeah, so you are totally embedded or infused your whole life into behavioral economics, and it's an area that not a lot of people know about. But you and I have a shared passion, which is what we're going to talk about today, which is
We
behavior.
live it, breathe it. We live and breathe it.
We live and breathe it, but behavioral personalization
Yes.
it is what we're all about. And you and I love this area and really see it as the next frontier. So maybe if you want to, just talk a little bit about how you've got to this place of embracing behavioral economics in your life and career, but then we can get into, behavioral personalization as the next frontier.
Sure. That would be good before we answer any questions. And I just want to be mindful of the time. So I just want to say that across my recent work in terms of behavioral strategy and content development, and as a professor, one thing that keeps on coming up is about technology, especially artificial intelligence. And as it continues to help connect clients more quickly to information, products, and services, that's progress, right? But Hugh, we've also improved the flow of the communications and content. And yet, it often still feels pretty soulless. The systems are efficient, yet they don't reflect how people actually think, decide, or behave. And I feel like that's where the behavioral personalization changes the story, right? I think your sentiments are similar to mine on this, that when AI modeling is informed by motivations, learning styles, behavioral patterns, it stops being just about speed and it starts being about connection. So I feel my work has always been at the intersection of behavioral finance, communication, and decision making. But now with AI in the mix, we finally have the ability to bring humanity back into the process, right? And that's what I'm looking forward to unpacking during our conversation today.
Yeah, because I think one of the difficult things with human behavior is just understanding all of the different people are out there that humans are unique. And to date, in a psychometric sense, people have had to complete a profile to get that understanding, whereas now we're able to get that kind of understanding digitally. Like DNA Behavior has launched the DNA digital scan, and we've got already 275 million people in our database, amazingly enough. And I know we'll hit a billion over the next few years, which is the goal. But I think that does change how we can market to people. But maybe we just need to, for the audience, Joel, just talk a bit more about what behavioral personalization is, because I think
Absolutely.
I think the world's been stuck on, well, we are doing behavior because we've got demographic information. We know that someone's male, female, white, black, Caucasian, whatever, how much money they've got, and we do the marketing to that. But really, two people that are say black, two females that are black with $1 million in the bank and two kids, are not the same people, even though they're getting treated the same. So maybe we just need to talk about that a little more, just for
Love to.
clarity for everybody else.
And I'll be kind of brief with this because again, I know there's so much to literally unpack in this episode. So, but to help to bring everyone up to speed on this, right? I would start off with just saying, for example, the financial service industry, as well as many industry, I feel are at an inflection point. So, what you were just saying, Hugh, right? Traditional personalization, the based on demographics, maybe it's a credit score, transaction history, income, has reached its limits. So, clients may qualify for the same product, but I think where we're going with this, right, is that the decision making styles, those motivations and biases are completely different. So, and that gap, by the way, is costly. So across like various industries, drop off rates after, let's say, onboarding, I feel still remain sky high because people don't feel known. So behavioral personalization solves this by aligning the products, the services, the culture with the ways individuals actually think, decide, and learn. And so the benefit to, and this is what you, I feel like I'm just resonating and repeating a little bit what you're saying, but maybe paraphrasing, but the benefits of the product don't change. But the way we've delivered and framed adapts now to each client. That's what builds the deeper engagement, the longer retention, and the stronger loyalty.
Because at the end of the day, people buy a product or a service usually with emotion. Emotion is involved. I think every marketer and salesperson knows that. That's well known. But knowing what those triggers are for each person, whether it's positive or negative, to be able to navigate that in the marketing, allows us then to, as you say, to sell better um, and retain the client or the customer for longer, because someone feels emotionally engaged with. I think it's not just satisfaction; it's a deep emotional engagement. That's what this offers us the opportunity for.
I agree. Spot on.
And I think the next part around all of this is that business has worked a lot on the 80-20 rule, and and that we'll really focus on those 20% of the customers that produce 80% of the profits, that kind of thing. But there's so much more we can do and go further, and this has been highlighted to me recently in a book called The Long Tail by Chris Anderson. And I know you and I have talked about that or addressed that a little bit before this episode. So I'm just interested in your thoughts on the long tail and what we can do.
And I really like this thought in this question because I think you're right. That book, The Long Tail, was truly ahead of its time, right? So for decades, you're right, business strategy revolved around what's known as the Pareto principle, or what we just said, the 80-20 rule. So as a refresher, or you know, or for those who may not be as familiar, it basically means that 80% of your results come from 20% of your clients. I also think, and maybe it's known or unknown to many companies, but I also think it's been a useful foundation for resources allocations with a company, right? A reminder that you can do anything but not everything. So, with limited marketing, advertising, technology spend, or infrastructure, right? The goal was to focus on those few who matter most. And here you can, please jump in at any time if you think, you want to add to something here. But I really feel like the reality is that the 80-20 rule has never been really scientifically proven, but it's a really great observation. It's not a law, but I still love using the 80-20 rule to explain even efficiencies of workers within an organization. But I really think also it's really starting to show its age. And I know there are several mixed opinions about the author in the book, but what Anderson proposed was revolutionary in terms of technology makes it possible, right, to profitably serve the name of the book, the long tail, meaning we can now connect to 98% of the potential customers we once ignored. And with AI modeling, that vision becomes real. And we can now hyper personalize to scale, not just for the top 20%, but for almost everyone. However, and I feel like here's the twist just because you can reach 98% of your audience, it doesn't mean you'll connect with them. If everyone is using AI to chase the same efficiency, you end up in what is called the Red Sea of sameness. It's a famous reference from the Blue Ocean Strategy. So, what we're seeing today is every message looks good on paper or online, but people experiencing content fatigue or maybe even choice paralysis. And that's what this behavioral data changes the game. So, when we layer in decision patterns, motivations, and communication styles onto an AI driven targeting, right, you're humanizing the messages. And suddenly, the responses isn't just you found me, but you get me. And that's the moment when clients lean in and they say those three most powerful words any business wants to hear. Tell me more. And I also think that's what technologies like DNA behavioral digital scan makes possible. And, if I may make the plug and, attempt to flatter you a little, but it's true. Your company takes AI scale and infuse it with humanity. And I think that turning what could be mass communication into meaningful hyper personalization. So I cannot think also of many platforms that even come close to that level of personalization that DNA behavior is doing right now.
Yeah, I think that. Well, thank you for the plug, Joel. But I think that what this is, what we're allowing us to do, and what we're talking about here, is to go beyond knowing the demographic and financial transaction type information, which is the historical persona model, to more of a psychometric model to understand
Yes,
people and their emotional drivers and put the two together.
yes,
And yes, we could stop we could that and that's the behavioral personalization, is the marriage in a way of demographic transactional information with psychometric information, which is getting to the emotional side of the person. And we could do that just for the top 20% of the clients. But in actual fact, in the world today, because of technology, we can bring this level of precision matching, if you want to call it that, where we are, matching clients or customers to a product and to the types of salespeople and support people that they need, the content, the right language. We can go well beyond the top 20%, to, as Anderson was saying in the book, to the 98% that everybody can get that. Now, a business still will have to decide, whether they've got the infrastructure to support all of that, but they can go way further than they could ever before, I think, and that means you can get more customers. I think we can think of this. If you're a wealth management firm where I do a lot of work, and they're always picking out the top 20% of the clients, people over a certain assets under management, free assets, income, and whatnot. But what about the kids in the family? The other family members? Now they can be brought into the picture and be known enough to provide some kind of solution to them. because of this kind of technology uh, being available. And you know that this is how all businesses are going to need to operate in the future, and I think expand their thinking. And if they do, they'll expand revenue. And technology is the game changer. And for us doing the digital scan is can get to know people at a much deeper level at the using psychometrics without them having to complete a profile. We can go beyond that. That's just to sort of clarify that for the audience. So how do we getting more into the tin tax, how do we address these behavioral biases that have been discovered through research over the years, and infuse them into the actual communications?
So I don't know if it's like a twofold, because I'm first thinking about, right, those motivations. I'm thinking first maybe of an example, right? Even something as simple as transactional. Let's use a renewal behavior in the insurance industry as an example. So a client who also sets their policy to auto renew might get labeled as someone who's organized, right? But that kind of misses a bigger story. And if you find out things even as simple as like their learning style, such as if they have what's called kinesthetic preference, which is often the case, right? We can associate with people who like to auto renew. That's someone, by the way, who prefers learning or understanding through doing. And in this particular situation, but someone who's liking the act of setting up an auto renewal. So they may be motivated by a need for achievement. They may be influenced by biases like anchoring or risk avoidance. So now, if you think about the way most insurance firms respond after renewal, the message usually sounds something like this: what is deemed as positive and emotionally connected. And you may hear something like, "Nice going, you're now protected," right? Maybe that's an auto response to doing that. And that's really polite, but it doesn't mean anything. It acknowledges the transaction, not the person. And I think that's what's often going on now. So here's how a behaviorally informed response could sound. You could say something like, you didn't just renew, you locked in things in before life got busy. The habit of taking action early is exactly what keeps you ahead. Now, I'm sure I could have done a bit more succinct and more polished response. But if you wanted to even take a step further, right, the hyper personalization also can um, improve like the call to action. So if I could even modify something as to say, you set your coverage before the deadline. That same forward thinking mindset keeps everything in your world running smoothly. Since you like having things handled in advance, let's take one more thing off your list and set up your family coverage to renew automatically too. I could have a link, a call to action. I'm expanding the experience. I'm helping them enhance what they already like, and I understand their behavior. That's the difference between a generic acknowledgement and what we're talking about here in terms of behavioral personalization. You're not just completing the transaction, you're reinforcing someone's natural tendencies and guiding them toward the next step that fits who they are. And
Yeah.
go ahead, I'm sorry,
I was
Hugh.
going to say, it's almost, sorry to interject, it's
No,
almost like I was thinking of, a number of online services that I've bought over the years, and even any service, and you get the bill, and you pay, and then you get a receipt, and that's all it is.
all right.
It might be,
It's a nice receipt. It's a nicer receipt than what we used to get.
yeah, but it might be, thank you for your for your business, or something fairly cold at the bottom, I think is what you're saying. Whereas what we're talking about here is, how do we warm that message up to show the appreciation to the style of the person? Like the words you were just using then would be more to a more structured person that wants order and planning in their life. Whereas for the person that wants more fun and engagement, you change some of those words to sort of talk about, well, now we've given you life freedom to get out there and have the fun that you want to have and feel safe in the process, or for somebody else their goals. I think that's what we're talking about is acknowledging the person, a lot more for their uniqueness. Um, that's really what we're getting to, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, I think again the challenge though, and I was giving this example of a simple format because I think one of the challenges many firms still struggle with is data readiness, right?
Yep.
I
Yeah.
mean, or they feel that way. And then again, this is another reason why you would want to use, available platforms such as yours. But you ask yourself, like, how can organizations start moving it, right? How do you move toward this with the data? If you think the data is incomplete, and I think many companies don't even capture some of the basic information about their clients. Maybe they do, but I think the opportunity is you don't need a perfect data set to begin. I think, again, just like a human nature, companies and the people who run them, we are humans, and people may feel like it's an overwhelming task or they feel like they're not ready. But you just need the right lens. So even simple signals, and in the case of when I was mentioning about the insurance one, right? Insurance example, you can look at things like, and you just brought up too, payment timing, digital engagement patterns, service interactions. Those things actually reveal a lot when interpreted behaviorally. And so that's why I gave that transactional situation like the auto renewal. However, those base signals, you can introduce low friction tools that generate predictive behavioral profiles, right? That's something also what the digital scan can do. It helps you early in the client journey. So instead of waiting years to build out a data set, firms can start delivering personalization almost instantly. The key is to shift the data from being purely operational to start becoming more behavioral. So, and I'll just cap this, and I'll drop the mic at the moment. But once leaders adopt that mindset, every piece of information becomes an asset to improve engagement. And organizations can scale much faster than they thought possible. And as I mentioned earlier, right, business leaders could go into warp drive if they leverage platforms like the digital scan.
Yeah, I think that, if the data is ready, we could be deploying, and we can deploy the digital scan, and, millions of people can be given a behavioral style essentially overnight. And that then allows marketers like, such as you, to step in and redirect, reframe, restructure the marketing strategies. I was talking about this with somebody else yesterday who's got marketing technology, and he's going to adopt the digital scan for that. You know, why not know who your database is as people up front, and then direct all of your marketing strategies going forward, rather than waiting to see who doesn't open emails and who misses deadlines and who decides not to do something. Let's get proactive and do it up front, and do it, and then do it with far more knowledge, as opposed to waiting, to do a website grading exercise, and, checking who's gone onto what pages. All of that's very expensive. And in a way, you've lost the sale. Whereas how much more could be made if you knew it day one? And from a data perspective for DNA behavior, all we need to know is the name of the person and where they work. And, I was, Joel, horrified the other day when we were, planning this exercise with a major bank, and they didn't even know where their customers worked. Like, they've got to get that information to actually do this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
all they know is how much money they've got, essentially how much money they've got in the bank account and where they live. And this data readiness is an issue, but it doesn't need to be, as you were trying to allude to. I don't think it needs to be a lot of data, and we can build on it. And then it's a building exercise, that we don't go from 0 to 100% on this, or 98% with the long tail in one go. Theoretically, we can, but
Yeah.
we can get cracking now with a lot
Yeah.
of organizations if they have
Yeah.
the basics.
I'd also say, and then someone who's listening, and a lot of people say, well, I'm already on top of it with we're using AI models, right? And this goes back to the original conversation here, and about AI is not the same as having behavioral insights. And most AI today is built on efficiency. So where they think they may be making leaps and bounds in terms of um, the efficiency, like faster onboarding, smoother approvals, automated chatbots, right, and agents, people don't decide though on the logic alone. They decide through biases. So I wanted to kind of, if you don't mind, Hugh, I want to go into maybe like two or three types of biases as an example,
Yep.
how to illustrate it, if that's okay with you.
Please, Joel.
So let's say let's say we look at bias. Like I think a lot of people decide through biases. Let's say present bias is a big one. This makes us focus on today over tomorrow. It's why we often seek instant reward versus delayed gratification. Another is loss aversion, which makes us overprotect against risk because the fear of loss outweigh the potential gains. And complexity avoidance makes us delay decisions when things feel overwhelming or when we experience choice paralysis. So why I'm bringing this up is these are just like a handful of and very applicable behavioral biases in the financial industry and in other industries and just how we are as humans. But when AI systems are designed to recognize these types of biases, they stop being transactional and they start being relational. So if present bias is in play, AI, if it knows this, can reframe a long term benefit into something immediate. If it's complexity avoidance, it could be blocking action. AI can present fewer, clearer options. That's where the personalization shifts from fitting the product to guiding the decision-making process itself, right? And that's what unlocks everything, the adoption, the retention, and loyalty at scale.
Yeah. And I think, the fun thing here is going to be with agentic AI, with all of these AI agents, to be able to program them up essentially as humans that are already trained in human behavioral understanding and match them to the right customers, and I think we know, like uh, even Kaleido Life, a company that we're both helping to have the right agent help you through the sign up process for your Kaleido revolutionary life policy that's going to provide all this cash for you.
It's
Um,
going to blow the industry out of the water when it
when
reveals.
they come on board fully,
Yeah,
it's yeah,
when they reveal itself, it's a perfect. You're right. It's a perfect example of everything we've been talking about so far.
because the agent, the AI agent that runs the onboarding process will be programmed, but then we'll also know every customer, or client from the get go. And this can be true in any area of financial services, but also in any business. Even a number of years ago when I was trying to sell this idea before we had technology, really, like at Haverty's furniture store. Why not? I tried to explain to them, what a new customer walks in the front door, you've got 4 salespeople waiting to serve that person. We'll just send the right salesperson to that customer. And you can figure that out very quickly. And we had to sort of, um, play a couple of games to get that right. But now with AI, you'd know up front. And what efficiency is that going to have? Because someone like me doesn't want all the fluff conversation that somebody else would want to have when
That's
they're buying
right.
when they're buying a bed or a lounge, right? Um,
Right.
and so I think
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but you're hitting a very important point, right? With how we create communication strategy. People don't realize that they say, well, we've got to use all the different mediums, right? Social media, online, on paper, on the phone, in person. You know, they don't realize the reasons behind all this is because of people's different behavioral styles. You could also be smarter, right, with your communications. And what you're just mentioning right now is if you know just a little bit more, right, you're connecting with them like that. versus guessing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is we're completely taking the guesswork out. We're putting it at people's fingertips, and the salespeople, the marketing people don't need to be behavioral experts to do this because technology's there. And I think the future is now on this, Joel.
Yeah. So, it's funny you say that because often I get, or we start thinking about, and we do planning, right? Where we're going to be a few years from now. I think there was a lot of talk, even not so long ago, about where we thought we would see ourselves, in terms of what's going to happen in 5 years with AI. And look what happened in less than one. So sometimes I'm not sure. We sometimes need to rethink in better steps, and we're almost on an exponential track with some of these things. So I'm not sure if we want to project 5 years, 1 year, or even 10 years from now. But I would say success will go far beyond the marketing campaigns, right? It will mean firms embed this behavioral personalization into how they operate. And I think that's in the intent with a lot of what we're trying to do, right? How services are delivered, how teams are coached, and how leadership cultures even shaped, right? The leaders have such an important role. So for clients, the success will mean financial journeys that match their decision-making styles, their biases, and their readiness. For the internal teams, it will mean using those behavioral alignment to avoid blind spots and ensure the culture reflects the clients they serve. And for the organizations holistically, it will mean scaling growth without losing depth. Because in all these cases, every interaction feels designed for the person on the other side. And I feel like that's the vision, right? You're not just digitizing old models. And I think that's what the issue is here, especially with some of the recent events I've been at and have
Yeah.
spoken, and I'm sure with you, with a lot, and you were just mentioning about a bank, um, that um, this digitizing of models, reimagining financial services, or any industry for that matter, is around actually human behavior. So firms that make that leap will be the ones leading the industry 5 years from now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, given you're a marketer, a lot of what we've talked about today, we've addressed behavioral personalization through the marketing lens and to a degree the sales lens that follows. But you made an important point there that shouldn't be missed is business operations. I think even the whole product structure and how products are designed can get all changed. And really it all comes back to foundational discovery. If we know more about the human being and how they are wired up front, we can do way more earlier that will be a game changer for almost any business. And that's really what we're talking about, because we might change the order of how something is presented, structured, um, the design of a product. There's just there's so many ways that this is going to impact businesses. And I don't know that I think we both know it's going to be huge. Uh,
Very huge.
yeah, and probably a lot.
I really don't think people realize how much everyone's talking again just about AI alone, how it's a game changer. Again, back to like the Red Sea versus Blue Ocean, the real exponential component is leveraging all these behavioral pattern points.
And I think the other side of it is, as we wrap up, is just also the internal compliance, the
Yeah.
the external regulatory compliance can all be done way better, because if we put a tailor-made suit on every client, regardless of the industry, we're really providing a twofold benefit in a strategic sense to an organization. We're helping them increase their revenue, lowering all the marketing costs. That's that side, but we are improving compliance, governance for the organization, and that's not something to be sneezed at in today's complex world.
Yeah. So again, there's it's almost like triggers me to talk so much more about so many different things, but I know again, and I always have this problem. I don't want to monopolize your time, and I know how much we're trying to squeeze into a podcast episode. Before I forget, I just want to kind of leave at least one thing, and we can continue talking and expanding. But it's almost like my takeaway or recap or close. It's not my closing statement per se, but however you want to label it, AI has already changed how quickly we can match clients with information, products, and services. We get that. But speed alone isn't the win. And I think they don't have the right focus because without weaving in the motivations, the decision styles, and the behavioral biases that we've been discussing, it stays efficient but soulless. So the real opportunity is pairing artificial intelligence scale with the behavioral insight so that every interaction feels not just fast, but it's right for the person on the other side. That's what turns transactions into lasting relationships. If you do it right, that means selling more product to more people more often will occur naturally. So I just wanted to make sure, people can hear this and go, yeah, this all sounds good, but how do I make it feel right? And I think they really need to go back and really think about what may be already missing. How are they creating a very unique value prop? And I think what you and I are discussing right now, it is the key.
And there are huge financial drivers to implement this as a business if it's done
Oh my
proactively
God, yeah.
rather than in a reactionary way, which in a way that's how it's tended to be. Is let's do something, an A/B test, or try something out and see the results. Well, why not know before you do all those tests and get into it and I think and launch something from knowing. It may not stop every A/B test because that's not the idea, but it will make what's done better and drive better ROI out the gate, and then more A/B tests get better ROI. But at least we're starting with a positive.
Oh,
Uh,
much more cleaner, efficient A/B testing, a quicker way to ROI. Right? You're not gonna have to wait, months or years. You may even be able to see this in a matter of a quarter, right? If you're doing it right. You can see the efficiencies and effectiveness, right? Because all this, it's not always, that's the other thing too, right? They're talking about when we talk about AI, which is great in helping reduce costs, but but at the same token, right, you're gonna see increased potential in revenue and relationships.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think if then the 98% rule from Chris Anderson's book, The Long
Yeah,
Tail, brought in, that's going to give everybody more to think about here and to drive more benefits. So, I think we're in for an exciting few years, Joel, and I
yeah.
know our expectations are going to be exceeded beyond our dreams. And, it's going to be exciting as we can truly put soul into business, because technology is what's actually going to do it. Even though, in a way, technology itself is soulless, we can infuse it with soul. Um, so,
I think you just said in a very short one sentence succinctly what I was trying to convey just a moment ago. That's perfect.
yeah. And so, is there anything else as we wrap up that you'd like to share?
I just wanted to say, I hope that a lot of people take this and that this podcast episode and what we're talking about with which I'm concerned about with all the content fatigue we have out there is that people just don't think about it, they act upon it. And hopefully we'll expand and reach out to us on how to actually expedite.
I think that this is the start of that journey, and the
Yeah.
great thing with
It's a
technology,
wonderful story.
yeah, with technology these days, there's going to be plenty of people that get the message of what we're saying, in varying ways, whether it's just listening to the podcast or the transcriptions of the podcast, other domains that this finds itself going into. That's the beauty of technology.
That
And
is.
I think the world is understanding now what behavioral personalization can be, and it's time to execute.
Thanks, Hugh, for having me on board for today's episode. As always, um, you energize me when we talk about these conversations, and I look forward to more conversations with you. And I look forward to connecting with the audience. So
Well,
thank you.
I appreciate your support, Joelle, on this journey. It's been it's been a long one for both of us, a long way to go. But the hard work is paying off, and it's exciting to see the world move in our direction.
Thanks again, Hugh.